You're about to buy something small, and you hesitate for a second even though you know you can afford it. The number's fine, but the feeling isn't. It feels like this decision carries more weight than it should, like something could go wrong after. You go through with it anyway, but it doesn't feel neutral. It feels like you just crossed a line you weren't supposed to. That moment should be simple, but it isn't. Your body reacts before your logic does. There is a slight tightening, a pause, a need to be careful even when there is no clear risk. You are not responding to the price. You are responding to what the decision represents. That is the shift. Financial pressure is not always created by what you have. Sometimes it is created by what your brain expects to happen next. The moment you spend, your system does not register completion. It starts scanning forward. It asks what this leads to, what this could trigger, and whether this is the point where something starts to slip. That question does not match the situation, but it still runs. So even small decisions feel loaded, not because they matter that much, but because your system treats them like signals. Signals of loss, signals of change, signals that something might not stay the way it is now. That is why the feeling lingers after the decision is made. The action ends, but the tension doesn't, because your brain is not reacting to what just happened. It is reacting to what it believes could follow. That reaction didn't start here. It was built in moments where money felt uncertain, and your brain had to read the situation without being told what was happening. You noticed when plans changed, when something was suddenly not possible, or when a simple decision carried tension. You learned to feel the shift before you understood it. Over time, your brain connected money with interruption, not just spending, but what comes after spending. Something could change, something could be limited, or something could stop without warning. You didn't need exact numbers to learn this. You only needed repetition. When the same kind of tension appears often enough, your brain stops treating it like an event and starts treating it like a pattern. And once it becomes a pattern, it turns into a rule. The rule is simple. What you have now might not last. That rule doesn't wait for proof in the present. It relies on what happened before. So your brain learned to be careful before decisions, not after. It learned to slow down, to hesitate, and to treat even small choices like they could carry consequences. That worked in that environment. It reduced the chance of being caught off guard. But the rule didn't update when the environment changed. Your brain didn't mark that period as temporary. It marked it as how things work. So now, even when your situation is stable, the same rule still runs. You hesitate not because something is wrong, but because your brain learned that normal moments can still lead to problems. Your brain did not store that pattern as an idea, it stored it as protection. When money felt uncertain, your system adapted to reduce risk. It learned to slow decisions down, to add hesitation, and to create a buffer before committing. That response helped you avoid making things worse when there was no room for error. The problem is, your system does not track time the way you do. It tracks threat. If something once led to loss, it treats similar moments as potential danger, even when the outcome is different now. That is why the hesitation feels automatic. You do not decide to pause. Your body does it first, and your thoughts follow after. You feel the tension before you explain it. You become careful before you justify it. This is not overthinking, it is anticipation. Your system is trying to stay ahead of something it believes can return. Stability does not turn this off. In some cases, it makes it stronger. When things are consistent, your system starts looking for signs that they might not stay that way. It becomes alert during calm moments, because calm did not last before. So instead of relaxing, it prepares. It treats stability as something that needs to be protected, not something that can be trusted. That is why the feeling does not match the situation. The numbers say one thing, but your system is running a different calculation. And when those two do not align, your behavior follows the system, not the numbers. At some point, this stops being just a reaction and becomes part of how you see yourself. You are not just someone who hesitates, you are someone who is careful. That shift matters. Being careful feels correct, not temporary. It feels like the reason things stay stable. So when your situation improves, the pattern doesn't relax, it tightens. One part of you can see that things are different now. There's more margin, more control, and fewer sudden changes. But another part of you does not trust that shift. It treats your current stability like something that could reverse, not something that replaced the past. So when you try to act differently, it pushes back. Spending without tension feels wrong. Moving quickly feels careless. Trusting the situation feels like a risk. You are not just changing a habit, you are challenging a version of yourself that was built to stay ahead of problems. That version believes it is the reason you are safe now. From its perspective, relaxing is not progress, it's exposure. So it keeps the same rules in place even when they no longer match your reality. The problem is, what once protected you now starts to limit you. It keeps your decisions narrow, your responses cautious, and your behavior tied to a version of life that no longer exists. The pattern follows a sequence even when you do not notice it. A normal situation appears, something small and routine. Before you act, your system adds weight to it. It slows the moment down and brings your attention to what could follow, not what is likely, but what once happened. That projection creates tension, and that tension changes how the decision feels. You become more careful, more precise, or slightly delayed. Even when you go through with it, the feeling does not reset. It lingers. You do not feel neutral after. You feel like you need to be more controlled going forward. That is the mechanism. It does not require a large expense. It only requires a learned link between spending and instability. Over time, the repetition strengthens a loop. Hesitation confirms that hesitation is necessary. Caution creates a sense of control, which makes the pattern feel effective, so the system keeps using it. The important part is that the mechanism does not update on its own. It does not compare past conditions to current ones. It runs on recognition. If the situation looks familiar, it applies the same response. That is why small decisions can feel heavier than they should, not because they matter that much, but because your system treats them like signals of something bigger. Over time, this stops feeling like a moment and starts shaping how you move through everything. You begin approaching decisions with built-in caution, even when there's no clear reason for it. Simple choices take longer. You think through outcomes that do not need to be considered, you add control where it is not required, and that control starts to feel necessary. The pattern narrows your range without being obvious. You choose what feels safe, not what is actually safe. You stay inside familiar limits, even when your situation allows more. Movement feels like risk, and hesitation feels like responsibility. From the outside, this can look like discipline. You appear careful, consistent, and controlled. But inside, the pressure never fully leaves. You are managing a reaction, not just making decisions. And because the reaction is always slightly ahead of the moment, it shapes what you are willing to do. Opportunities that require trust feel heavier. Decisions that should be neutral carry weight. Even positive changes get filtered through caution first. The pattern doesn't stop you completely, it just keeps you operating below what your situation would actually allow. It makes expansion feel unnecessary and stability feel fragile. So instead of moving with your current reality, you keep moving inside the limits of a past one. So now the situation is reversed in a way that is hard to notice. You are no longer in the environment that created the pattern, but the pattern is still shaping how you respond. The conditions changed, but the reaction did not. That means your decisions are not being guided by what is happening now, they're being filtered through what your brain still expects to happen next. And if that stays in place, your future will not be shaped by what you have, it will be shaped by what your system is still trying to prevent. The question is not whether your situation is stable. The question is whether your brain will ever accept that it is, or keep preparing for something that is no longer there.